Mr Wilson, a seminal issue here is the broad community support. The ministers, I know the Act doesn't require that, but one presumes the minister stands up in good faith and says what he says. So I'm just curious, you said that an important role in the community support was the vote that will take place commencing the 20th of August. I accept it doesn't rest on the entire number. What number will you, as you have your decision algorithm or the minister's decision algorithm, will constitute a pass in terms of that particular requirement within his total decision making?
Well, Senator, there is no hard algorithm, and there never has been. I think the minister's public comments have said that he will take that ballot number into account. He's not going to reduce it to a single number, and I can't really add more to it than that. But it will be taking into account, as I said, that other stratigraphic or horizontal cross-section of community views from a range of other groups informing his decision. So
you would understand that when you go to a council election, it's very clear how someone would win a council election or a state election or a federal election, and it's actually a pretty fundamental thing from a community confidence perspective to understand what that number is, and yet you say it could be any number. Is it, if you got 45% of the vote in Canberra or Hawker, would that enable the minister, with all other factors lined up, to say yes?
I'm not going to speculate on that, Minister.
Okay.
Senator, that's something you'd have to ask the minister.
Have you provided advice to the minister on how he should approach his decision making?
Not around a number, and we've provided advice on the structure of the report that we will give him, but we have not, and we would not provide advice on what an appropriate number is. That's purely a decision for the minister.
How does Minister Canavan, I know Minister Canavan very well, I like Minister Canavan. What expertise does he have that would enable him to make a good decision on what the right number is if he's not receiving advice from you or from a department on that number?
Well, not he personally, but he, in his role as Minister for Resources in Northern Australia, has been vested with his decision by the Parliament of Australia.
That's not the question I asked.
As he said to the community.
How does he make a decision on that? I understand he has the legal authority to do that. Mm-hmm. How does he make a good decision, noting he's a very smart man, but he must at least have some factors that go into his decision making, and if he's not been given advice by you, how does he make that decision?
Ministers are required to make decisions on aspects under parliamentary law all the time, and they don't get given advice or structure around how they make those decisions. They're elected and they are the minister that are vested with that responsibility. They're accountable to Parliament. He will use his
but what about the community?
He's made a commitment.
He's made a commitment to the community that he wants broad community support, and I understand. He's said in the chamber that he's going to consider the neighbours, the neighbouring properties. Now, in consideration of that, does he require each and every adjacent neighbour to be satisfied, or is that only 3 of the 4 if there are 4? In the case of Aboriginal considerations, which he's also said is very important, does it mean that one Aboriginal group can be happy but another one can't be? Does that qualify as broad community support? How does it? The whole thing appears as a sham if you don't up front state how that decision will be made. Can you accept that making a decision with no declared upfront mechanism for doing so just leaves the whole process as a sham, because people in the community will just say he's made it up. Before he went in, he had decided he was going to do this, or before he went in, he decided he wasn't going to do this. In any man's language, any woman's language, a vote ought to be explained up front so people know the criteria. That hasn't been done?
Well, I disagree, Senator. We've told them that all the factors that will be taken into account.
But not how they'll be weighted. It's useless information.
No, the minister will make a decision. He will weight those factors according to what he learns from each community. And as a minister of the Crown, he often is required to make decisions on that basis. He will publish a reason for his decisions. He will publish a report on that. He's committed to doing that, so people will understand the basis on which he made the decision, and that will be answerable to Parliament.
The point here is that you're giving nothing. You're putting nothing on the table to show that any of this process of consultation is in any way genuine. If you're not prepared to say how much it is going to be weighted, what the impact of a particular outcome is going to be, this is all just for show. It's lip service. You can't prove it's not, Senator. Mr. Wilson. You can't prove it's not because you're incapable of saying how the decision is going to be made.
No, I can absolutely reject the claim that this consultation is not genuine or lip service. This consultation will directly inform the minister's decision. He will take into account what the people tell him, and he will come to a view as a Minister of the Crown, as he's required to under the Act of Parliament, and make a decision, and then he will publish his reasons for his decision. They will be transparent, and then he will be accountable both to the communities and the electorate and the Parliament. That is generally how decisions are made under Acts of Parliament. Very rarely do Acts of Parliament specify.
Why have a vote? Why waste the taxpayers' money? Why don't you just see how hard the wind's blowing and make a decision on that?
Because we listen to each community who asked for a ballot. The first time round we did a survey using a
Well, what if I said to you the community
company
is asking for a number before they go in? The minister said 65% in the chamber. He did mention other factors. I don't want to verbal him. Is 65 what is required to in the AEC ballot component of his decision making enough to quantify or to qualify as broad community support?
That will have to be a question you direct to the minister. I can't speculate as an official.
Okay. Last year, an FOI request was made to the department that sought access to the advice given to the minister in respect of making that decision and how broad community support would be determined. Are you aware of that FOI request?
I am. Okay,
so clearly there is advice that has been provided to the minister on how this decision should be made.
It's being hidden.
It's absolutely been hidden. It's secret advice. Now, actually, the FOI exemption used, being deliberative processes and affecting the operations of the agency, does not apply to the Senate. So, can you please table that advice on notice to that explains how this decision will be made? What advice was given in that document that the minister has?
I will have to take that on notice, Senator, and consult back into the department with the minister's office.
Okay, so but you acknowledge that information exists?
Certainly, we provide advice to the minister. We don't tell the minister what to do. We provide advice.
I understand that. Why would you consider that to be so sensitive?
Look, I don't want to debate the legal basis for the
I'm not giving
FOI.
It's just a simple question. Yeah. Do you consider that advice to be so secretive? This is a community that is you're going to make a decision on behalf of the community. Surely they're entitled to understand how that decision is going to be made, this decision that affects them.
So there's two different things in that, Senator. One is the advice we provide the minister, which is our view on the outcome, and then there's the decision by the minister, and they're two separate things.
Sure.
Our advice is just one input the minister will listen to, and I can assure you doesn't always listen to what we say. So if I remember exactly, and I may not have it right, the FOI request was, how did the minister make his decision?
No, it's sought for the definition.
I may have it wrong, but
I have it here actually. So the request was for any advice provided to the minister that defines what broad community support is.
So we didn't define what broad community support was.
Well, I've got an FOI document that says something exists. You just
we provided advice to the minister on the outcome on on the results of the community survey or the community ballot for Kimber, and we provided a report on that. The report has been made public. There's been nothing hidden from that report. Our particular advice we consider to be outside the scope of the FOI for the reasons we put down. I will take it on notice, your request for tabling, and we will respond.
Can you give me any, noting we're running an AEC vote, can you provide me with another example in a decision-making process where the AEC has run a vote and the success or failure criteria has not been defined up front?
So I think it's important to describe what the AEC process is. It's not technically a vote as you would understand it for an election. It is a fee-for-service offer that they also do for other clients. For instance, they often run union ballots and other things.
Sure, but
that's
we're getting down to
semantics
there.
No, it's important because if they were doing this as a federal election, then there are clear rules around that, around what the results mean. This is a fee-for-service.
Don't you think that's a well-thought-through philosophy?
I do. They run the ballot, they provide the returns on that ballot, the interpretation and the use of that ballot is up to the client.
This whole process becomes irrelevant if you don't, in terms of getting broad community support, bringing the community along means nothing if you get to the other side of the vote, whichever side is unhappy with this vote are just going to call it a sham.
There may be people who do that, Senator. All I know is from talking to the community, they wanted this ballot. They were very happy with the majority of respondents we've talked to.
I've talked to the community and they want
process.
a number. They want to know what it is that constitutes broad community support. And we've got a department here that's simply saying that this whole definition is so secretive. It's a secret. It's
not a secret, Senator.
I might find in the Soviet Union back, 30 years ago.